Hey guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. Welcome back to the channel. This is part 10 of the one item a week out of the emergency storage shed. Part 10, I think it's part 10. That means we're doing this for 10 weeks and we've hardly even got an area inside the door. So it's going to be a long running series. I'm also going to combine in this one just a bit of a peek about what I'm up to in my main shed, because I have taken on board a few people saying it should be a priority to get my workbench cleaned off because this is where I do all my projects, and that's absolutely right. So I'm making a little bit of progress there, and we might get something else from over towards the sandblaster cabinet because I need to access that, as I keep saying. But first of all, let's go out to the emergency storage shed and pick something to remove from there this week. Okay, the weather's turned a bit cooler. You saw I had a jacket on. It's actually a great time of the year, the early stages of, well, late stages of autumn, because I don't need a fire, I don't need the heater just yet, and I don't need cooling, so it's really good. Okay, here's what we're up to. Now, someone mentioned, it might have been Glenn, someone mentioned, oh no, it might have been Ross, I think, what's in that timber box? It looks interesting. I totally agree. I don't know what's in it. I don't want to tackle that one this time. I thought we'll just make this a fairly quick one, and we have talked about this valve grinder. We have to make a decision on that. Let's carry that through to the bench and have a bit of a look at it and work out exactly what we're going to do. And then perhaps we might do this milk crate here. It looks like some interesting old cast iron bits and pieces. Yeah, that'll do for now. Two heavy boxes, well, two heavy items to take through to the bench. Okay, I've gone for the crate first, guys, and I'll tell you that valve grinder is awfully heavy, so I'm not going to bring it into the bench. There's not much point. We'll go and have a bit of better look at it out there in a minute, and we'll make a firm decision, because I think it's going to go to the shop to sell as is, and I don't want to have to move it just yet. My back hurts, my shoulder's still not 100%, so I've got to be sensible. This one was heavy enough. Let's have a look in this crate and work out what we're going to do with this stuff and how much value there is. I think we can sell a bit of good gear out of here. Now, this is some interesting old stock. It would have come out of someone's shed. I probably put it in mine at the back of the shop thinking I'll clean it up or value add somehow one day. This is a petrol iron, obviously a clothes iron. I think it's called a spirit iron actually, because not everyone calls petrol. But basically it has a flammable fuel in here which burns inside the iron. You have a timber handle so that you can hold the thing without burning your hands, and you iron your clothes. Now, it seems fairly primitive to actually have a volatile liquid on fire next to your delicate white shirts that you're ironing, but that's what they did. I think it was better than a coal iron. They used to put hot coals in some of them, and you had lots of troubles with little cinders coming out and leaving black charcoal marks on your white clothing. So, yeah, we've come a long way with clothes irons. That one appears complete. It doesn't appear to be damaged. It's a little rusty, but not too bad. All I'm going to do with that is give it a little bit of a wash up. The little fuel container here will clean up fairly nicely just with some fine steel wool. It's just nickel plated or chromed, probably nickel plate. The original timber handle looks really good. It's still got most of its blue paint. So all I'm going to do with that is give it a wash up. And value-wise, we'll probably see how well it cleans up, but I would be thinking at least $50 for that one. A genuine antique iron. This is not a hat. It's got a bit of a wasp's nest there. It's the tray for some old scales. They would have probably been shop scales or something. And I don't know. They are in here, but no, there's different scales in here. These ones have been in the weather for a long, long time. Very, very surface rusty. That's all paint. The old paint's just flaking off it. It's a shame the clock dial's so rusted. It would have looked quite nice. Probably still kind of works, but I don't think it's worth going to the trouble of cleaning it up. It would be a big job to clean up. And then if you're going to repaint it, then the thing loses most of its appeal. It starts to look brand new again. Again, I think I might just give it a wash. Maybe a wash up. We'll get all the loose paint off it. Can't do much with the dial. I think we'll maybe just give it a wash up and maybe spray it with a clear lacquer. So we'll have a nice, genuine, antique looking set of scales without looking like a reproduction. And the the clear lacquer will still give it that rusty look, which some people kind of like, and it'll make it clean, so you know someone could still have it on a display in a kitchen. But yes, it's a shame it's been in the weather for so long. It actually appears to be undamaged. It's just badly weathered. All right, not much more in this crate. We have a couple more irons. Now these are again clothes irons. They are just basically a solid lump of cast iron. I think they were mainly Salter brand. They usually have like the like a tied knot of rope, is I think the symbol that Salter used. And these make fantastic doorstops or bookends. As an iron, they were just simply sat on the side of a stove and they heated up. I think you would have had to have a rag around the handle, or you wouldn't have been able to hold them. So there we go, a couple of Salter irons. These are quite pitted. They've obviously been lying around in the dirt for a long time as well. So, although I think they were a fairly rough cast iron in the first place, I think I'll just again give them a wash up, hot soapy water, a bit of a scrub with a scouring pad, get all the loose stuff off them, hit them probably with some clear lacquer spray again, and we should get at least $20 each for these two in this condition. We have a cast iron wheel, and it looks like the axle is full of mud, or it could be a wasp's nest again, and it looks like its mate is in here. That one looks as though it's probably got a spider in the axle hole, but I think it's the same wheel. They may actually not have been a wheel. They might have been a pulley, a flat belt pulley. It could have gone on an overhead shaft, and a lot of the early engineer places, mechanics workshops, often in the early days, even shearing sheds had an engine that drove an overhead shaft, and on that shaft you had lots of different size pulleys with flat belts that went down to various equipment, and it was all driven off a power plant engine, sometimes a kerosene engine or diesel. So no electricity back in those days. So these are possibly pulleys, but they can certainly sell as wheels. They're the same diameter. They would be nice wheels on an old trolley made up for if you're restoring an old engine and you want to put it on a trolley. So they'll clean up and sell very well. I would think it's not a breakout of that one. It's actually so that you can get in to undo the set screw. If you can see there, set screw there. So I would think at least $10 each, $15 each, probably $30 the pair. They would sell pretty easily. Again, we'll just give them a wash up. No restoration involved. One more thing in the crate. This is a bell. Now it's a bit unusual, and I think the mechanism went in a little hole there to actually ring it. I don't think there's any way I can ring it as it is at the moment. And it's a bell off a milk separator. They had a mechanism on the old hand crank separators, or cream separator if you like, that when you cranked the handle at the right speed, because speed was critical in separating the cream from the milk, it used to ring a bell once every revolution. And you had to try and, if I remember rightly, you had to try and get that bell to ring every, I don't actually know the time frame, maybe every second. So you'd be ding, 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 and once you got to that speed, your milk separator would work, separate the cream properly. So I'm fairly sure that's what it's off. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's got something written on the brass plaque here. I can't read that. We will give this a bit of a clean up as well. The brass, it's probably brass, because brass gives such a good ring. Let me get a screwdriver or a socket extension. Definitely a bell. Bells are often made out of brass because brass has a very good resonance and it vibrates to give a longer tone. That's why most bells are made out of brass. It's probably nickel plated again. Should clean up quite well. I'm not sure what it's worth. It's a bit unusual. Someone restoring a milk separator may be chasing it, but then again, I don't know what model it fits or even what brand. So we'll clean it up. I'll probably put, it's unusual. I might put $20 on it in the shop and see how we go. That's it. Our crate is finished. It's clearly been parked outside for a long time. So now I've got to clean up a mess on my bench. I'll clean up these other items. The only thing I didn't mention the price on or what I'm going to do with is this tray for scales. I think the same thing might apply to this as to a lot of things I've been making the tough decisions on lately, and you guys are helping me out here. Usually I would keep this in a box marked old scales trays, and every now and again I get a set of scales that needs a tray and I can match them up and sell it complete. But I think probably the best mindset I've got out of doing this cleanup for you guys is that I'm now really making that decision that I don't need to keep it in my shed here. I don't need it to clutter up my life. I don't have room to store all this stuff at the shop. I'm going to give it a clean up, put it in the shop for $10. If someone buys it, I get $10. Hooray. If I need it for a set of scales and it's still in the shop, great, I go and grab it. If it's sold, bad luck. I sell a set of scales without a tray. So there you go. I think that's a good theory. You guys have helped me form that mindset, and it's certainly helping me reduce the amount of stuff here. And if you remember back to that teapot video quite a while back, which I discussed that theory, I've actually sold just about all those teapots without lids. So that's pretty cool. Okay, let's clean this bench off and wash up this stuff. Okay, back to this valve grinder for a minute. I did try and lift it. It's solid cast iron and it's extremely heavy. As you've gathered, I've pretty well decided that I'm going to sell it. I'll try and get out of the doorway light so we can see what we're looking at. It's a universal valve refacer. I think it's British made 44U. Not sure exactly what brand it is. I didn't worry about cleaning that up too much. It's going to need a lot of work, and as a few of you pointed out, I don't really have the use for it, and I'll readily admit I don't. If I'm repairing a 4-stroke engine and it needs a new valve, I can send one away to get it ground, or I can buy a new valve. Most times I'm doing up an engine, the valves just need lapping in, so they don't need an elaborate piece of workshop equipment like this. And half the jobs I do when I am mucking around with small engines are 2-strokes, and of course they don't have valves at all. So I'm going to sell it. I might just take it to the car wash and pressure wash it. It's pretty filthy. Put it in the shop and it can be someone else's project. I did look online and there was a few selling, and well, they weren't selling. People were asking a few thousand for them in good order. There was one for $1,000 that still hadn't sold. This one, the motor's probably going to need a complete rewind or a replacement motor. I don't know what the stones are like, but it's going to need a lot of work, and it's not something I want to spend time on. And the other consideration is if I do fix it up and use it and keep it, even if I do some jobs for other people, it takes up some of my bench space. It's not something I want to really concentrate on. So that's where it's going. As for a price, I don't know. Maybe $100, $150. I honestly don't know. If any of you guys that are watching, if you're subscribers of my channel, I'd gladly do it a bit cheaper for you. Say $100. I might put it in the shop for $200 once I get it cleaned up. The offer's there, but I'm going to get it out of my shed. I'll load it in the ute next chance I get, and it will be gone from here. I'm just back from the car wash this morning. You can see this valve grinder has cleaned up a lot better. The motor, though, appears to be seized. It would have had a flat belt drive, which the belt's burnt off. I'm sure it's been through a fire. You can look at all the wiring. There's no insulation left on it. But it might restore okay. The idler pulley seems to spin. This does, but it needs freeing up. It looks like it's you can lube it. I'm not sure if they're proper bearings or just bronze bushes. This actual carriage does tend to even move. So it might be a good restoration project for someone, but not for me, as I've explained. If anyone is local and subscribed to my channel, I will go for let it go for $100. I'll probably put it in the shop, I think, for $175, and it can sit there for a while. So let me know if you're interested. And now back to our goodies, all cleaned up and all had a bit of a spray of clear lacquer, and you can see they cleaned up pretty well. And they're nice and clean, as in clean to touch, which makes a huge difference for putting them in the shop. You can see that actually looks great. The chrome on the little tank is good. We've now saved the last of this paint from flaking off because the clear lacquer will give it a good coating. So I reckon it's a great way to present things. Minimal work. They're not over restored. I don't like things like this painted black. I mean, I know some people do, but it's such an easy, quick spray just to go matte black, and I think you lose a lot of the character. So this way, they're clean, they're presentable, they look rusty, but that's popular, and they're kind of preserved. So the tray cleaned up pretty well. It's not a gloss finish, it's kind of a matte finish. The scales look great. The dial cleaned up a lot better than I thought, and just the fine steel wool did a good job there. So they actually work. They work quite well. So a great piece there for a kitchen display. And you can still see some remnants of the paint underneath, but it certainly took all the flaky stuff off. I reckon that's nicely preserved now and not over restored. You can see how the irons make really good bookends, and they are great as door stops, as I said, although I can vouch that they really hurt if you kick them in bare feet. The wheels, I think they are pulleys, but it's nice that the lacquer, the clear lacquer, highlights any original paint that's left. So I think that gives it a really nice touch too. So I'm pretty sure they are pulleys, but they are the same size and they would work as wheels. So they'll sell quickly at $30 the pair. And this is a separator bell, and it actually is branded Lister on the bell. Lister separator. The bell, I have to inform you, is actually steel. A magnet sticks to it, so it's not a brass one. I guess in this case, the bell doesn't need to be particularly good sound quality. It's really just an alert so that you know you're cranking at the right speed. And the little brass tag on the back actually tells us the speed. 56 rings, I guess, per minute, which is around about 1 a second. That's a nice piece. I like that. So there we go. What did our total finish up? We seem to be getting at least $100 out of every box that I find. Well clear of that this time. In fact, I think that adds up to $65, $100, $170, $190. And I think they're very achievable prices. Perhaps the separator bell might take a while to sell, but I'm sure the pulleys, the irons, I sell lots of the irons. The old scales at $35, we could probably get more than that. They did clean up very nicely. But that's all right. They'll look great in the shop. Quick sales. Almost $200 in the kitty, and another box out of my shed. And I did say that before we finish this video, I'll have a bit of a peek in this corner that I have been starting to clean up, and I actually have workbench available. So I've been labeling some things on those drawers that I set up there last time. It will probably only be temporary. There's some things I'll probably move to other drawers, but at least I can find stuff. And we're getting some of the workbench back. We have a bit more to go. But in between all the other videos, I am going to try and make my workbench operational. And I do actually want to set a pedestal drill up in this corner, so we'll get to that soon. All things in good time. We'll get there. Now, I was going to get something from over the other side. We'll do that in the next video. I've also got to get something out of the carport, so I might make another quick follow-up video of a few random bits and pieces. And then next week, we'll be back to get something else out of the emergency storage shed. So 2 items this week. The huge big valve refacer and a good box of metal treasures which we've valuated too. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.